In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Today, my friends, as we announce, we will have a talk about the vaccine and clearing all the doubts about the vaccine. Before we start, we'll just hear together a lovely لحن بتاع أسومان so that we can benefit from that لحن as well as prepare ourselves while we are waiting for other people to join. Let's see here. Awesome. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Today, as we announced, we have our graduate meeting. We will do it as an informational session about the COVID vaccination. Mina Thomas will present to us an overview on the vaccine and different kinds of vaccine, as well as clearing some doubts and myths about the vaccine. It was lovely that Mina actually, by self-motivation, he actually approached me and said that we feel that we need to raise the awareness. And at the same time, I was also having feeling that many people might have different wrong views on vaccination and so forth. So because of his line of work and because of his expertise, he prepared a wonderful talk to us. Yesterday, we had the same lecture in Arabic for the family group. Mina presented that as well. Today, through the grad group, he will present the same lecture but in English. Thank you, Habibi. Please go ahead.
طب معلش يا ابويا ممكن تديني شير للسكرين اكسس؟
اتفضل حبيبي.
Okay, so زي ما ابونا قال انا the whole point of having this lecture is to give awareness, especially around the Coptic community. I feel like there's still some hesitancy because of fake news that people are getting from social media, websites, and wrong information about the COVID-19 vaccinations. So that's why I decided to put together a lecture to try to clear up some of the confusion around the vaccinations. I'm not forcing anyone to take their vaccine. The church is not forcing anyone to take the vaccine. The whole point of this lecture is to make sure that you guys have the correct information regarding the vaccination and you to make your own decision. So also Dr. Lydia Gindi was supposed to be joining us today, but I think she is working, but she asked me that I'll share her email address at the end of the slideshow if you guys have questions, and I'll also share my email address as well. Okay, so why are we having this lecture? Like I said, to get a conversation started, to make sure that you guys have the correct information, and especially in our Coptic community or Egyptian community, there's a lot of misinformation being spread around. And so, and like I said, I'm not getting paid for this lecture. There's no, I don't work for any organizations or anything like that. The whole point of this lecture is that make sure you guys have the correct information, and all information in this lecture is based on credible resources, such as the World Health Organization, the CDC, that's the American Center for Disease, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, that's the one in Canada, Manitoba Health, and obviously two of the most famous medical schools that have a lot of research, and they do their own research studies and look at the data, not just the one that comes from the United States, the CDC, but they have their own group of doctors, and that's the Mayo Clinic and Johns Hopkins Medicine. So quickly, the things that we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to talk about what is the COVID-19 virus, what's the different types of vaccinations that we have in Canada and in Manitoba, talking about some of the myth and fake news surrounding vaccinations, what is herd immunity and how we can achieve that, quickly the Christian perspective regarding vaccinations, and so if you decided to get vaccinated, what's the next step to do. So in case if you guys were living under a rock for the past year, we've had this respiratory virus called COVID-19. The slang for it is Corona, and the name Corona comes from the spikes that are on top. And Corona is the Latin name for crown, and that's why it was called Corona, the coronavirus. It started in Wuhan, China, in December 31st, 2019, and since then it has spread all over the world. And so about 80% of the people that get the coronavirus, they recover normally. They don't have any problems after that. But the scary part is that about 15% of them become seriously ill and they require oxygen to the point that they need to be admitted into the ICU wards, and some of them end up dead. The death rate for the coronavirus is 1 to 2% worldwide, and even in Canada, it's also 1 to 2%. And one of the major concerns with having the coronavirus is that it would cause the respiratory failure, and which leads to sepsis and septic shock, pulmonary embolism, multiple organ failures. It could affect your heart, your kidneys, your liver, and basically any other organ that you have. And that's why it's really critical and important that everyone gets vaccinated. And we've also seen that it's also affecting children as well. And there's a lot of children that got affected, and some of them are dying from it as well. And we're seeing, especially in India, with the new variant, something called this severe inflammatory syndrome. So, and again, we still don't know why it affects the children. So after the child gets the vaccine, the coronavirus, and recovers from it, there's long-term consequences where basically the body's immune system turns against the body and puts the children in a dangerous situation. So and we are seeing more and more of that happening in children and at younger age people, especially with the Indian variant or the Delta variant. Okay, so like I said, the most common symptoms of COVID-19 is fever, dry cough, fatigue, loss of taste or smell, congestion, pink eyes, sore throat, vomiting. So all these are flu-like symptoms that once you get the virus, you'll get these flu-like symptoms. But the problem becomes when you start getting more severe symptoms like shortness of breath, confusion, persistent pain, pressure in the chest, high temperature more than 38. And there's something also called the long hauler phenomenon, where they have noticed that after people got the coronavirus and they recovered, they still are suffering symptoms like shortness of breath, confusion, reduced consciousness, sleep disorders, and anxiety, depression. Some people having brain inflammation, delirium. We still don't know why these symptoms are happening and why some people are still suffering from coronavirus symptoms even after they recover or test negative with the coronavirus. And so that's why it's critical that we prevent each one of us catching the coronavirus before getting it by vaccination. Okay, and like I said earlier, when the virus started, we've noticed that the majority of people that end up with severe medical disorders after having the coronavirus is people aged 60 and up, because they have underlying conditions like high blood pressure, heart and lung problems, diabetes, obesity, and cancer. But like I said, with the new variant, we are seeing more and more young age people and children are getting sick with the coronavirus. So what does that all mean? Is that anyone could be affected with the coronavirus, and that's why, like I said, again and again and again, it's important that everyone to get vaccinated. So as of now, there is no treatment for COVID-19. The only things that we can give to a sick patient in the hospital would be put them on oxygen, give them high dose steroid, and there's other drugs that they were looking at like hydroxychloroquine, all these things, but all the studies showed that they have very little effect on decreasing the mortality rate, or preventing them from dying. So that's why our only protection or our only fight against this virus is to get vaccinated, because until now there hasn't been a single proven treatment used for coronavirus. Okay, and how can we protect ourselves from the coronavirus? As you guys already know, that we to wear masks, social distancing, washing our hands, keeping the rooms well ventilated. But even with all these precautions, you can still end up getting the coronavirus. And these precautions are not enough to stop the spreading of the coronavirus. And so, like I said, the only shield or the only weapon that we have against defeating the coronavirus and its spread is by getting vaccination. And even if you do get vaccinated, you can still end up having the coronavirus, but the symptoms will be very mild. It will be something called asymptomatic infection. That means that you are fully vaccinated, you could get infected by the coronavirus, but it was going to have a very minimal effect on you. And that's the whole point of not just the coronavirus vaccine, any vaccine. We give vaccine to children when they're young, or when teenagers, or even with the older people, is that when they do get the vaccine, their body responds quickly to the threat. Think of it as think of your immune system as an army. Basically, your army is ready all the time in case of any foreign invaders, and that's how the immune system works. Okay, so there's 4 types of vaccines that are approved for use in Canada, and they're divided into 2 categories. There is the one that use the mRNA technology, the Pfizer and the Moderna, and there's the 2 that use the non-replicating viral vector. That's the AstraZeneca, and the Janssen, that's the Johnson & Johnson one. In Manitoba, right now, there's only 3 vaccines that are approved for use. That's the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the AstraZeneca. As of a couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks ago, you can't find the AstraZeneca anywhere in Manitoba. There is a huge shortage, and even then, Canada decided that they're not going to order any more doses of the AstraZeneca. So the 2 ones that are being used most commonly in Canada and Manitoba are the Pfizer and the Moderna. So I have here a short 5-minute video that talks about the different type of the vaccines, and it explains it. And hopefully after watching this video, it will explain you better understanding of how the vaccine work. And I'm going to talk about it even more. So let's watch it.
In March of 1963, Dr. Maurice Hilleman was woken up one night by his 5-year-old daughter. She was complaining of a sore throat, so Hilleman looked her over and determined she had the mumps. Unable to sleep, he was struck with an idea. He swabbed her throat for a sample, drove to the lab, and got to work. 4 years later, his mumps vaccine was approved. It was the fastest the vaccine had ever been developed. Until now. It's incredible how quickly this vaccine and others have been developed.
This was done in record time.
This is extraordinary. This is the fastest vaccine development in U.S. history. In 2020, vaccines for COVID-19 have shattered previous records, going from development to approval in a matter of months. That speed was driven by billions of dollars and a global effort. But in some cases, it was also because of a breakthrough vaccine technology decades in the making. Something that could shrink this timeline going forward and change how we make vaccines altogether.
Mina, تقريبا when you share your screen بتاعت الفيديو, make sure
it's
you
not.
check the box.
Oh, okay, sorry about
Check the
that.
box بتاع الساوند.
Okay.
So Hilleman looked her over and determined she had the mumps. Unable to sleep, he was struck with an idea. He swabbed her throat for a sample, drove to the lab, and got to work. 4 years later, his mumps vaccine was approved. It was the fastest a vaccine had ever been developed. Until now.
New vaccine against coronavirus.
And it's incredible how quickly this vaccine and others have been developed.
This was done in record time.
This is extraordinary. This is the
fastest vaccine development in U.S. history.
In 2020, vaccines for COVID-19 have shattered previous records, going from development to approval in a matter of months. That speed was driven by billions of dollars and a global effort. But in some cases, it was also because of a breakthrough in vaccine technology decades in the making. Something that could shrink this timeline going forward and change how we make vaccines altogether. Vaccines teach your immune system how to respond to a threat, and traditionally there have been 4 ways to do this. The 2 most common types of vaccines work by exposing you to a weakened or dead version of a virus or bacteria. The weakened virus won't make you sick, but it will teach your body how to fight the real thing if you're exposed to it later on. This is how the measles and annual flu vaccines work. Another, less common type of vaccine does a similar thing, but uses an inert version of a toxin instead of a virus. The most well-known version of this is probably the tetanus shot. This 4th type of vaccine works a little differently, because it only uses a small part of the virus instead of the whole thing. Common examples of this would be the hepatitis B vaccine or the HPV vaccine. Some of the new COVID-19 vaccines also rely on these traditional methods. For example, one COVID-19 vaccine currently in trials uses this 4th method. It only uses one part of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, known as the spike protein. That spike protein is what allows the coronavirus to enter your cells. When injected into your body on its own, it's harmless. But your body will still recognize it as a foreign threat and launch an immune response to fight it off, which is enough to teach your body how to fight the whole virus. But isolating and preparing that spike protein for a vaccine is a process. Researchers first had to modify it, then multiply it a lot, and then assemble the vaccine itself in a lab. In fact, one thing that all 4 of these types of vaccines have in common is that they all require growing and transporting large amounts of live pathogens in a lab. And that takes a lot of time. A vaccine goes through many steps before it can be approved. But before anything else, it has to be developed. And working with live pathogens makes that process a lot longer. On average, it takes 5 to 10 years for a vaccine to reach FDA approval in the United States. Most COVID-19 vaccines have gotten through this process a lot faster by overlapping the different phases of human trials and starting the manufacturing early. But some vaccines have also found a groundbreaking way to speed up this first section by shifting some of the work out of the lab and into your body. Nearly every function in the human body is carried out by proteins, so our cells are constantly manufacturing them. To do that, they make a single-stranded copy of DNA. That copy is called messenger RNA, or mRNA. Each strand of mRNA holds the information on how to make one type of protein. The cell reads the mRNA, follows the instructions, and makes a protein. And that's where these 2 new types of vaccines come in. They contain instructions. Researchers who developed these new types of vaccines, called mRNA vaccines, started with the genetic sequence of the virus. They also decided to focus on the spike protein we talked about earlier. But instead of assembling and purifying that protein in a lab, they identified the part of the genetic sequence that creates it, and then took a much faster route by synthesizing mRNA and using that as the vaccine, which saved months of time and money. Once inside the body, the cell reads the mRNA and begins to make harmless spike proteins of its own. From there, your body's immune system recognizes the foreign threat and sounds the alarm. This is how the new COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna work. But the main drawback with an mRNA vaccine is that mRNA breaks down very easily. It has to be delivered inside a protective fatty barrier and kept ultra cold, which isn't super ideal for a vaccine that needs to reach all areas of the globe. Another effective new-to-consumer kind of vaccine works similarly, but uses DNA instead of mRNA, which is much more stable. The COVID-19 vaccines from AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson are this type. It doesn't require the ultra-cold conditions, but it does have its own drawbacks. To get the DNA into your cells, researchers use a harmless virus as a carrier. But over time, your body will build resistance to that virus, which means future doses using this carrier will become less and less effective, and the carrier will need to be updated. But in terms of efficacy, cost, and speed, these 2 new types of vaccines have broken records. These new vaccines are a groundbreaking way to elicit an immune response. And while they'll have a big impact on how we fight COVID-19, their real impact is just beginning. A vaccine that delivers specific instructions to your body opens up a whole new world of vaccine technologies and disease treatments for things like cancer or HIV. Finding the vaccine was a turning point for the pandemic. But the pandemic might also be a turning point for vaccines.
Okay, so hopefully that video showed you quickly how the vaccine technology works. And I just want to mention something that I forgot to say before, is that all the slides that I have in my PowerPoint, here is the link to where I'm getting my information from, and like I said, like the five mentioned trusted sources, and that's where I got all my information from. And the links at the bottom if you guys want to go back and look at the literature itself. Okay, so this is a diagram or a picture of shows you that how it works. And so like the video says, the spike protein, that's the one on the surface of the COVID-19 virus. It acts like a key and a lock situation. So basically the spike protein acts like a key and your cell is the lock, and that spike protein is able to enter the cell. And when it enters the cell, it releases its DNA inside the body, and the virus replicates and it causes the symptoms of COVID. So what the vaccines or how the vaccines work is that they took the the mRNA of the spike protein, not the actual virus. They took just the DNA of the protein of the spike protein. That's these little spikes over here. They put it in lipids or fat, just that it can be stable to be enough to be injected. And once it enters the cell inside your body, the fat lipids break down, and the protein, the mRNA gets made, the cell starts making the proteins, and these proteins are recognized by your immune cells, the T and the B cells, that's your immune system, and they will start making antibodies. Okay, the same method worked with the other two, the viral vector vaccines. That's the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson, but instead of packaging the mRNA of the spike protein, they put it in another type of virus that doesn't replicate or that's not harmful, something called adenovirus. The AstraZeneca uses the monkey version of the adenovirus. The Johnson & Johnson uses the human version of the adenovirus. And like the same idea, once it goes inside your cell, the adenovirus quickly breaks down so it doesn't affect your body. It releases the mRNA. The mRNA starts making, the cell starts making the protein. Then after that, when your body sees these proteins, your immune system attacks them and starts making antibody. That's the whole. That's a quick explanation of how the vaccine work for the COVID vaccine. And so, like we said, all of the 3 of the 4 vaccines that are approved right now for use in Canada, all of them require 2 shots. Both shots are the same amount. There's no difference except for the Johnson & Johnson, which only require 1 shot. But like I said, right now, Johnson & Johnson, even though it's approved in Canada, it's used in some provinces, but it's not being used right now in Manitoba. Okay, and so we can see here how effective are these vaccines. So after you receive your first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, you get 52% immunity, and after 14 or 21 days, the immunity goes up to 92%. And when you get the second shot, or it's considered a booster shot, your immunity goes up to 95. The same thing with the Moderna. You start off with 80%, and then a couple of weeks it goes to 92. Then with the second shot, it goes to 94.1. The one with the AstraZeneca, the first shot gives you 76% immunity, and after 4 weeks, when you get your second dose, it goes up to 82%. And finally, Johnson & Johnson, it gives you 66% immunity. So basically, when we talk about, when you ask me which is the best vaccine out of all 4 of them, I would say the Pfizer and the Moderna. Yes, all of them are good. All of them work fine. And if you don't have to wait for the availability of any of the 3 of them, so whatever you find, take it. It'll still give you some immunity. But on the paper or on the research, they found that the highest percentage for immunity is the Pfizer and the Moderna one. Okay, so once you decide to take a vaccine, what are the possible side effects or the short term? So like any other vaccine or shots, you're gonna have some swelling and redness and pain. That's at the location where the needle goes into. Then some people will also experience some tiredness, headache, muscle pain, chills, fever, nausea, and that's normal. This is your body responding to the vaccine, and you know that your immune system is working. Because one of the symptoms of having an active immune system is having fever, chills, nausea, headaches, tiredness. So these are normal signs. And all these side effects, or when you take the vaccine, all of these, they go away by the 1st or 2nd day, and you should be fine. You shouldn't be experiencing them. And some people, it lasts maybe 5 or 6 days, but that's very few people. The majority of people, by the 1st and 2nd day, you won't experience any of these symptoms. So like we said, the mRNA vaccine, both of them use mRNA, but one uses, we saw that adenovirus or something to carry the mRNA with it. So the Pfizer and the Moderna, as of now, and in Manitoba, in Canada, Pfizer is approved for people 20 years and older, and the Moderna is approved for people aged 18 and up. There is some group of people that should not be getting the mRNA, the vaccine, and that's with any, just like any other people. Some people have severe allergic reaction to the ingredients of the vaccine, and in general, these people are also severely reaction to any other types of vaccine, not just COVID. There's allergic to any other vaccines. They're allergic to dyes. They're allergic to any IVs. So, and when we say allergic reaction, we're not talking about like a rash or like a scratchy throat. We're talking about severe allergy that causes shortness of breath, that you'll end up in the hospital. That's these type of people who have severe allergic reactions to any vaccine or to some of the ingredients that we're going to talk about that's inside these vaccines. They should not be taking the COVID-19 vaccination. Okay, and like I said, these vaccines are very safe, and all the study shows that by day 7 at most, all these symptoms starts going away. And these vaccines are safe in pregnancy, the Pfizer and the Moderna. Okay, and as we mentioned, one is 95 and the other is 94.1. Now, when we talk about the non-replicating viral vector, I'm gonna quickly talk about it because, like I said, in Manitoba, as of now, there isn't any new doses of AstraZeneca coming in. But even if you did take the AstraZeneca as your first dose and you're waiting for your second dose, so the AstraZeneca is not 82% effective after you get your second dose. But we have noticed that people who are taking the AstraZeneca, and especially a group of people that have the potential for increased blood clots, they can suffer from an increased blood clot with the AstraZeneca. So something like we've noticed a cerebral venous sinus thrombus. Basically, that's a blood clot in your brain, or arterial system in your arteries and veins. you are more likely to get blood clots, but that's a special group of people that have the potential of having these blood clots, and that potential increases once they get the AstraZeneca. So if you don't have any of these diseases, you know, what's the percentage of me getting a blood clot from an AstraZeneca vaccine? As of right now, and this is worldwide, the percentage is 6.5 persons per a million. So we're talking about 0.00065%. You're gonna tell me, wait, this is really small, and I'm saying, and that's why everyone is saying that the AstraZeneca vaccine is safe to take. But out of extra precaution, we're saying that the people who have a high likelihood of developing blood clots, they shouldn't be getting the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Some of the material that or the ingredients that are being used in all the vaccines, whether the AstraZeneca, the Pfizer, the Moderna, the Johnson & Johnson, something called polysorbate 80, and that's found in a lot of everyday items that we use, like vitamin oils, tablets, anti-cancer drugs, or even cosmetics. And so if you know that you are severely allergic to polysorbate 80, you should not be taking the vaccine. The same thing with something called PEG, or polyethylene glycol, that's used in laxatives, cosmetics, even some of the if any of you have been went to get a colonoscopy, there's usually a drug that you drink just to clear your to clean your colon for the colonoscopy. So, like I said, if you know that you are severely allergic to these ingredients, you should not be taking them. And only very few people that are allergic to these. So, and they're also mentioning it because they want to be extra cautious. So this was a study done in the UK, and they looked at what would happen if the population got vaccinated versus if the population could not get vaccinated. And so they looked at these numbers is per 100,000 people in the span of 4 weeks. So every 4 weeks in England, every 100,000 people, people aged between 25 and 34, 7 of them would end up in the ICU. Okay. If we looked at the higher age groups, for example, 55 to 64, close to 29 people every 100,000, every 4 weeks would end up in the ICU. On the other hand, if the population was vaccinated, that number is going to go down. As you can see here, at this age group, only 1.4 people every 100,000 will end up in an ICU, or close to 6 people will end up in the ICU. So as you can see, like if you look at numbers like this is huge. From 29, it goes down to 6. And that's why all the medical literature and all the medical people around the world are saying it's important that you should get vaccinated. Okay? And so here we're talking about the risks of blood clots. Like I said, the most risks of blood clot is with the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson. The Pfizer and the Moderna, they haven't found any studies that showed that they increase the risk of blood clots. And even if there is very few cases, way less than the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson. And so they looked at if we have low exposure compared to high exposure environments. So for example, right now in Manitoba, we have a high exposure environment of COVID-19 of cases, because as you guys know, right now Manitoba has been for the past couple of weeks the #1 province in North America with the number of people getting corona compared to the population size. And so even if the risk of you getting blood clots from the AstraZeneca vaccine, for example, when you look at this age group, and this is low risk exposure, 14 people every 100,000 compared to 0.2. So this is your risk of getting a blood clot. So that's why we're saying it's very, very minimal. It shouldn't be a main factor that would stop you taking the vaccine. For example, in an environment where you have high risk exposure like Manitoba, you look here at people even age 20 to 29, you are 7 people more likely end up being in the ICU every 100,000 compared to 1 person that having any side effects from the AstraZeneca vaccine. And like I said, even with the most riskiest one, the AstraZeneca, in Manitoba here, they stopped giving the AstraZeneca and they stopped ordering new shipments from them. And what about the risk of blood clots compared to other diseases? Okay, so when I mentioned earlier that it was 6.5, so 6.5 is global wide. Here in this infographic, they say it's 10 per 1 million, and that's only looking at the European numbers, not the global. So even with the European numbers, 10 in 1 million, that's 0.001%. If any girl out there or a woman who's taking birth control pills, it's 901 per 1 million. So that's 0.09%. So something normal as a birth control, you are more likely to get a blood clot that is 9 times more than getting a blood clot from the AstraZeneca vaccine. If you're not taking any vaccine, the average Canadian, and this is per the entire population of Canada, there is 1,290 people per 1 million that get blood clots, just because of their medical conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and Canada-wide, there's or worldwide, there's 147,000 per 1 million people that end up in ICUs since the pandemic started because of the severity of this virus. So that's why it's very important that we get vaccinated. And like I said, you are more. This is looking at the death or what causes the most death leading causes in Canada, and so you are more likely to die from cancers, heart disease, accidents on the roads, severe respiratory diseases, and you see here COVID comes like 5th on the list. Okay, so this is people who are not being vaccinated, and this percentage goes way down when you get vaccinated. And the reason I'm showing this slide is that there's a lot of misconception on the web and on social media that's saying people were more likely end up dead from the vaccination compared to people who are not vaccinated, and that's not true, because the data shows that you're more likely end up dying from other things not related to the COVID-19 disease, and even when you get vaccinated, it's way less than that. Okay, and so because the extra precautions that Manitoba Health is taking to make sure that because of the blood clots, and like I showed you, it's 0.00065%, but out of extra precautions, Manitoba right now it's saying that anyone aged 40 or up can take the AstraZeneca, or people aged 30 to 39, they can take the AstraZeneca, but if they have severe diseases that's compromising their immune system, they shouldn't be waiting for it. But AstraZeneca is approved kind of way for 18 plus. So the last vaccine that we're talking about is the Johnson & Johnson. It's only 1 dose, and it also has a very low risk of blood clots, which is 0.0088%. Okay, and like I said, that because of these very tiny risks, we are saying for now that pregnant women should not be taking the Johnson & Johnson or the AstraZeneca, just because pregnancy by itself, because of the increasing of the estrogen and progesterone, that puts pregnant women at a higher risk of blood clots. So we don't want to increase that risk by giving them the AstraZeneca or the Pfizer or the Johnson & Johnson, even though there has been no studies present that shows that it increases their blood clots, but out of extra precaution, we're saying to hold on for now. Okay. And the new data coming now is that if you took AstraZeneca as your first dose, you don't need to take AstraZeneca as the second. You can take the Pfizer or the Moderna. And the same thing with the Pfizer and the Moderna. If you take Pfizer first shot, take the Moderna second shot. Or if you took Moderna first shot, you can take the Pfizer as the second shot. And they're not just, and because as you guys heard in the news, that there's going to be shortage in the next coming weeks of the Pfizer vaccine. So they're urging people to don't wait until the Pfizer comes. Take the Moderna. Both Moderna and Pfizer work the same way. They're just made by different companies, and both of them give you immunity. And they're saying that even for people that mix the vaccine, it's better for the immune system, because your immune system is learning to fight off the virus by looking at different ways of fighting, and just instead of one way, like because the vaccines work in different ways, so it's teaching the immune system to respond better. And that's why they're saying, the new studies that are coming out, they're saying it's better for the immune system to have the different types of vaccine instead of the same. But the whole point of this is that you should not be waiting to get the second shot, the exact same vaccine. Just take whatever is available, because like I said, and I'm going to show you a couple of numbers, you are more likely to end up in the hospital with COVID than being affected by any of the vaccines.
Mina, let's take only 5 minutes to open the door for any comment or question at this point, and then we'll continue.
Sure.
Obviously,
okay.
As you know, our lectures and the meetings are always more of an interactive, but today, because of the nature of the presentation, so it's like a kind of a solo lecture. But just let's stop here and see any comment or question. Okay, we'll continue, and at the end of the lecture, we'll open the floor also for everybody to comment or have some kind of clarification.
Okay. And برضه like we said, out of extra precaution, we're saying that if you took any of the COVID-19 vaccinations, you should wait at least 28 days before taking any other type of vaccine. Or if you took any other type of vaccine, you should wait at least 14 days before you take the COVID-19 vaccination. And the only reason we're saying that is that because we are still studying the side effects of the vaccine, and we were trying to be extra cautious. We just want to make sure that if something were to happen, that we can know that if this something happened because of the COVID-19 vaccine, or if it happened because of the other vaccine that you took. But like I said, this is only in an environment where COVID-19 spreading is very low. But if there's a lot of COVID-19 virus going around, you shouldn't wait. Just take the vaccine and go with it. So what's the whole point of vaccination? Something called herd immunity. Herd immunity is basically when we have enough people being vaccinated that that when the rest of the population get infected with the virus would be quickly killed, and it wouldn't be passed on to the rest of the people. And so to reach something called herd immunity, we need about 70% of the people. So if we're talking about Canada, we need about 26.5 million people to reach herd immunity. And as you can see here in this diagram, it shows that the people in the blue, these are people that are healthy but are not immunized. The people in the red are those that are not immunized and are sick or they can contagious. And the people in the yellow, they are the ones who got vaccinated. So as you can see here, and this is what happened, is that when the virus started, a couple of people had it, and by a couple of months later, they infected the entire population. But what happens when the majority of the population is vaccinated, and this is between the 70 and 80%, is that when you still have people that are infected with COVID-19, they're not gonna pass it on easier, as much easier as the people who are not vaccinated. Why? Because when you catch the virus, your body's immune system is already ready to fight the vaccine, so it will kill the virus at a to fight the virus. It will be much more faster of killing the virus, and not only that, it's gonna prevent the spread of the virus. So, and that's why we're saying it's really important that we get everyone vaccinated, at least the entire population, to be between 70 and 80%, and that's how we control it. And the problem with not reaching the 70% is that, as you guys heard the news, right now we have lots of variants of the coronavirus. There's the England variant, the Indian variant, the South African variant. All of these variant happens is because when people get infected with the COVID virus, the more infections happen, the virus changes in its genetic makeup to make it, because viruses are selfish. They like to replicate. They like to invade any cell replicates so they live. So when the more the number of people the virus infects, the more likely that the genetic makeup will change, and the more likely that they will start evading the treatment, or the treatment wouldn't work. And that's why, for example, you have the British variant, or the English variant, and the Indian variant. And the reason, because they're saying that still in India, there's a lot of people that have not been vaccinated. So there's a potential the virus to change its DNA. And even when England, when they started vaccinating, it was late for them to do that. And that's why you had the English variant. So the faster we can get everyone vaccinated, the faster we can stop the changes, the variant, and the faster the virus starts dying. Because once the majority is vaccinated, the virus is going to be will have no new host to invade. And even if it invades it, it will die much more quicker, because you have your antibodies that are that the vaccine gave you. And so, like I said, the whole point of this lecture is that we're trying to dispel some myth about the corona vaccine. And a study was done at McGill University in 2000 and found that the majority of people that have hesitancy about taking the vaccine, they take their information from Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp. Okay, and they did another study that found in the United States, for example, in March 2019, is that there is 10% of people that they know that they are sharing fake news, and there's close to 50% of the people that they were sharing fake or wrong news, and they thought that it was real. So basically, that's having people, they read news coming them on their Twitter feeds, their Facebook, the WhatsApp, and they think that it's real, and they start sharing it to their family and friends, but they don't know that that it's wrong. So it's dangerous, and that's why we have a lot of fake news being shared around. And that's why, like I said, that whenever you're looking, especially at any medical knowledge, you should be looking at trustworthy websites. And even when you're reading the website or the information is coming, you have to ask yourself who, when, where, and why. Who wrote it? Why did this article was written? Is there any benefits behind? Is there any people trying to make money off of this? The people writing it, how credible are they? Is it written by well-known medical organizations or not? Is it written by right-sided or left-sided political organizations? So you guys have to be really careful who to ask. So the first myth that is circulating the social media is saying that the vaccine was quickly rushed. And because, like we said, and even the video explained, most vaccines in the US, it takes about 5 to 10 years to be approved. But here, when the COVID-19 vaccines came out, it took about 12 to 15 months. So they're saying that the scientists rushed it and it's not safe. And this is not true. Like the video explains, I have here a demonstration, is that this is a pandemic. So that means that everyone in the world has this problem, and everyone in the world, they're working, trying to find a solution to this problem. And so all the scientists around the world, they dropped all what they're working on and they started looking for a solution to this virus. So that means we can do things much more faster. The second thing is that you have a lot of money being put into finding a vaccine. I think Trump said he put, I think, between 1 billion or 1.5 billion into the research for drug companies to find a vaccine, which means what? With all the extra money that they have, that they can start hiring more people, they can start buying more supplies and things like that. Compared to a regular research, and if you guys have worked at research, know that for people working at universities or drug companies to have your research funded, it takes a very long time, and you have to apply to grants and try to get money so that it could be funded. But here you have a lot of money available at your resources. You can hire a lot of people. And not only that, how they cut down on the time of developing the vaccine is that, as you guys can see here, they did the research and phase 1 of the trial. So phase 1 basically where they tried on very small group amount of people, then phase 2 would be bigger, then phase 3 would be even larger. So they ran the phases together. So they did the vaccine and the research development at the same time as phase 1. And they did phase 2 and phase 3, and even they started making the vaccine and distributing it at the same time. And drug companies said, okay, you know what? We're gonna start making the vaccine, and even if it turns out with the phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials that it's not safe or it's not effective, we're willing to throw away the vaccine. Okay, and that's how they saved time by cutting it down from the average of 6 or 7 years to 12 to 18 months. That doesn't mean that they rushed things, and it just means that it was done much more smartly. And not only that, we're in 2001. We're in 2021. So right now we have a lot of technology on our use. We have a lot of information from the past experiencing of developing vaccine that we found ways to make it much more faster and more effective compared to the old methods of taking lots and lots of years to develop a vaccine. Okay, so that's the first myth. The second myth out there is that saying that the messenger RNA that is being used in the vaccine, it's brand new, something new, so why should we trust it? That's not true. The use of messenger RNA vaccines have existed since the past 20 years, and they were looking at using it with the SARS outbreak, the Ebola, the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. So it's not something new, like what's being circulated on the social media. It has been available for the past 20 years. It wasn't well known. That's why when it came to the market, they said when they found that they can use it for the vaccine, but it existed out there. So it's not something new. Okay. The other big misconception saying, okay, well, I got the coronavirus and I recovered from it. My body has antibodies, so why should I still get vaccinated? Well, the reason is all the research that is showing right now that people that recovered from the coronavirus is that your antibodies go away between 3 and 6 months. So after 3 and 6 months, you no longer have an immunity to the coronavirus, which means what is that you can get reinfected again with the coronavirus. And I know personal people who got infected twice, and we've all heard friends or family members or saw on the news there's people who got infected with the vaccine twice or even sometimes 3 times. Okay, and what the new research showing is that your body is making antibodies last longer with the vaccine compared to the natural way of getting the antibodies when being infected from the corona. So even if you had corona and you recovered from it, getting that vaccine will give your immunity an extra boost. All right. And the problem with saying, okay, well, how about we'll just let everyone get infected with the coronavirus so that everyone can have antibodies? Well, no, that's not true, because we said about 15% of the people that get infected with the coronavirus, they end up in the hospitals with major serious side effects and illness, and they end up dying. So why are we taking the risk when we have something that is very safe, like the vaccine, to take, that's going to give us better immunity than being naturally infected with the COVID-19 virus? Another big myth out there is that they're saying that there is the vaccine has severe side effects, and we already talked about it. Is that about 15% of the people have very short symptoms, like we said, that pain at the injection site, muscle ache, feverish, some congestion, but all of these go away about between a day or two. They start going away, and it's not true when they say the vaccine gives you severe side effects, and we already talked about that. Sorry if I'm going a bit fast, just to make sure that I cover everything. Another myth out there saying that a lot of people will end up dying from the negative side effects to the vaccine compared from the actual coronavirus. Well, like I said, well, no, that's not true. The average mortality rate worldwide of people dying from corona is between 1% to 2%. That's even 10 times more higher than the regular seasonal flu. And like we said, is there, as of now, there's not a lot of cases of people. The mortality rate from the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine is close to zero. And even the people that died from severe blood clots, there was 0.00065 for the AstraZeneca and 0.00088%, as we mentioned earlier, from the Johnson & Johnson. And so that's the percentage of having severe blood clots, which is way smaller than 1% and 2%. So that's why we're saying, please get vaccinated, because you have 1% to 2%. It's large. And when we look at the population of Canada, and I think I had a slide about it earlier, 1% to 2%, it's huge. So when we talk about 1% to 2% death rate, that's between 14,000 and 28,000 for the population of Canada. And as of yesterday or today, we are close to 26,000 people that have died from the COVID-19 virus. So why are we taking the risk of allowing close to 26,000 or 28,000 people dying when we have a vaccine that could protect us and decrease the number of people dying? The other myth out there is that the COVID-19 vaccine is going to make you sick. Well, no, it's not true, because like we said, all 4 vaccines, they don't have the actual coronavirus. They have a part of the DNA of the spike protein or the cover of the coronavirus. It's not the actual virus. It's not like other vaccines like the measles, mumps, or the rubella, where they have a piece of DNA, a piece of the virus in it that's weakened. All 4 vaccines approved in Canada, they don't have the coronavirus vaccine, and so they're not going to make you sick. And so, you're going to ask me, okay, well, what about some of the things that we heard? Some of the people, after they got their coronavirus vaccine, they got sick and they tested positive for corona. Well, that's not true, because like we said earlier, in order for your immune system to start working, it's going to take about 2 weeks to start making antibodies. And so in those 2 weeks, after you get vaccinated with the first shot, then later with the second shot, you have a potential of catching coronavirus. And that's what happens. The people that catch the coronavirus after or they test positive for corona right after they get vaccinated, is that because their body has not built enough antibodies to fight the coronavirus. And even if you do catch the coronavirus, your body will fight it much more faster and you will recover much more faster. I know some people that after their second shot with the vaccine, they got the coronavirus, but their recovery time was 3 days. So by the 3rd day, they felt fine. So compare that to a person who would take not being vaccinated and recover from the coronavirus. It will take much more longer than that. Okay. So another myth out there is that saying that if you took the coronavirus vaccine, you can shed it or you can spread it to other people. And like we said, that's not true, because none of the vaccines approved in Canada for corona vaccine, they don't have the actual DNA of the virus, so you can't spread it around. Another myth out there is saying that if you took the vaccine, that you will test positive with PCR or test positive for COVID-19, and that's not true. The rapid test or the PCR, the RPR or the PCR test, when they look for the DNA of the virus. Okay, what you are getting, the vaccine, it doesn't have the DNA of the virus. There's only one test that can know whether you took a vaccine or no, is that when you look for the antibodies that the person makes in their blood, and the test tells you if the person is vaccinated or not. But even if you took the vaccine, you're not gonna test positive for coronavirus, because you're not getting the actual virus. Okay, another common myth out there saying that, oh, because it's an mRNA being injected in your body, it's gonna change the cell's DNA. No, that's not true. You're not gonna become a mutant like X-Men or start flying or shooting lasers out of your eye. All of these are myths. The mRNA, as soon as it enters the body, it's very, very, very fragile and it breaks down very fast. And even if you inject a stable mRNA, it will not enter inside your cell. There is some technology out there that it changes the DNA structures of your cells, but that's used in treatment of some diseases. And even then, it's a very complicated process that needs something called a Casper protein that cuts your DNA and inserts a DNA that's being made. But even then, this is very complicated. But compared to having a piece of mRNA that just goes inside in your cell, there's no way that will enter your DNA. It's going to change it. The vaccine, the method this vaccine uses is way simpler than that, and in no way can the mRNA enter your cell and change it. All it does is that when it enters the cell, the protein gets made for the spike protein, and that's how the body recognizes it. And just remember that your DNA is inside the nucleus. The mRNA, when it gets injected, it stays outside the nucleus, so it can't enter. Another myth out there is saying that some people don't like to get vaccinated because these vaccines were developed by aborted fetal tissue. That's not true. They used something called fetal cell lines to do the research on these vaccines, but they were never used in the development. So what that is that during the 70s and the 80s, there was aborted fetuses that they harvested their tissues and kept in a lab frozen. And so what happens is that they use these cells to replicate thousands and thousands and millions of times. And so these new replications, they're called fetal cell lines. So after about 1 million or so different replications from the original cell, it becomes completely different. So a fetal cell line is completely different from an actual fetal cell or an aborted fetal cell. And so, like I said, they use these cells because they look like human cells. They can use it to do the research to see how well the vaccine works, to make sure it works, they're tweaking the ingredients, stuff like that. But it wasn't used in the actual processing of any of the 4 vaccines, whether the Pfizer, the Moderna, the AstraZeneca, or the Johnson & Johnson. Okay, another myth out there talks about Oh, well, since you guys need to store these vaccines at very low temperatures like -20 or -70, so there must be a lot of preservatives in these vaccines, and preservatives are bad for you. Well, no, that's not true. First of all, the only reason they need to be kept at this very low temperature is that because the mRNA that it's in the vaccine is very fragile and it breaks down really fast when it's at room temperature. And so the only way to make sure that it's effective, it needs to be stored at 70. But even then, a couple of weeks ago, the recommendations changed, is that all these vaccines can be stored at regular fridges, 2 degrees to 8 degrees. They're good to be stored up to 30 days. And this is ideal because it makes the distribution, it makes it ideal, the distribution much more easier, so you can go get vaccinated at your local clinic or at your local pharmacy instead of going to a special site. So no, they don't have any preservatives. And when we talk about preservatives, they're saying that the substance used in these vaccines, we don't know about them, which is not true. They're using simple fats, sugars, and salts for the ingredients inside these vaccines that are found in everyday foods and everyday manufacturing vaccines. Basically, like we showed earlier, is that the lipid part, this protects the vaccine when it gets injected, and all of these break down very fast. So there's no controversial substance in there. Okay, a lot of another myth that being circulated online is that if you get your COVID-19 shot, you're gonna have metal inside of you, and you'll be magnetic. There's gonna be a magnet inside of you. That's not true. And we've all seen some of the videos online, and they're very hilarious, where there was actually a video of a lady in a town hall meeting saying, look, I got my vaccine shot, and all of a sudden metal starts sticking to me. And she had her house key she was trying to put it on her face and her forehead, but it wasn't sticking. Okay, so she made a fool out of herself. So none of the vaccines have metals or iron or nickel or cobalt. None of them have electrodes. None of them have magnets inside them that will give you magnetization, and that's not true. Another big myth out there saying that there is nano transducers or microchips inside these vaccines, that once the person gets vaccinated, the microchip will attach to you and you're going to be controlled by the microchip. Again, it's not true. And how this myth started is that Bill Gates, as you guys know, the founder of Microsoft, he has a lot of charitable organizations that help poor children that are in camps, and they were saying that when he was talking about in an interview, he was saying that he wants to develop an electronic record of the vaccinations that these children have, so that if they move around between countries or cities or camps, there's a record of them, an electronic record. That's what he was talking about. So they took that interview, they changed it, and they start cutting it around, and they said that, look, Bill Gates is developing a microchip that he wants to implant, to put in the vaccine so it could be implanted. First of all, tiny microchips at the nano level, they don't exist, and if they do, they will be very, very, very expensive. Not only that, there is no point for Microsoft or any other big company to try to invent microchips to control you. All the big companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, they know all the information about you. They know the things that you search online. They know that the food you eat, where you go using the maps, the type of music you listen to, the type of videos that you watch on YouTube, what you talk about on Facebook and WhatsApp. So this is an entire lecture on its own. I'm not gonna go in that. So everything is known about you, and everything is found on your phone. So all these big companies, they don't need to go the extra step to invent a microchip to control you. All your information is available to them. Another big myth out there, they're saying that the COVID-19 vaccination is not safe for children, which is not true, because with the new variant, we're seeing more and more kids are being infected with it, And not only that, even if kids get infected and recover from it, there are some kids that have long-term side effects from these from the COVID-19 virus, where basically their autoimmune system starts attacking the immune system starts attacking their body. And not only that, kids easily spread the virus around. So when you vaccinate the kids, you prevent them from having COVID-19 and you prevent them from spreading the virus around. And like I said, as of now, Pfizer is the only vaccine approved in Canada for children 12 years and older. And the reason Pfizer is the only one, it's not because the other ones are not safe. It's because when they did the research studies on Pfizer, that was the age group that they tested on. Moderna did the same things, but they still, the data has not been published yet. And there was talk in the news that Moderna could also be safe for children, but they're just waiting for the data. Okay, so the only one approved in Canada right now is Pfizer, just because they already published the data about kids 12 to 17-year-olds. Another big controversial myth out there saying that COVID, if you get vaccinated, you will, especially for girls and women, their period or their cycles, they're gonna be messed up, which is not true. And it's gonna get delayed or anything, or even if you stay or you live with someone who got vaccinated, that's gonna affect your menstrual cycle. All of these are myths, they're not true. Any girl or woman know that your period changes anytime that you're under stress, you're taking exams, if you're on a special diet or exercise. So the vaccine doesn't have to do anything with it. And none of the vaccines have to do anything with it, which takes me to a second part. And a lot of a big myth out there that's circulating is saying that vaccines, or people who are thinking, women thinking about getting becoming pregnant, or pregnant women, or women that are breastfeeding, should not be getting the vaccine because it will affect them and affect their baby. All of that's not true. COVID-19 vaccination does not affect your fertility level either in women or men. And I tell you how this myth started. So it started off with a professor who has a PhD. He's not even a medical doctor, but he has some sort of PhD, and he's an anti-vaxxer and a right-wing conspiracy theorist. And he said that, look, since the COVID-19 vaccination makes antibody against a spike protein, well, there's something called a protein called Synctin-1 that is involved in the attachment of the placenta during pregnancy. And so if people take the COVID-19 vaccination, the antibodies will attack the Synctin-1 protein, and women can get pregnant. Again, it's not true. The Synctin-1 protein looks like a spike protein, but it's not the same spike protein as the COVID-19, as the COVID virus. And so when your body starts making antibody to that spike protein, it will not affect the protein responsible for attachment of the placenta. When we say looks like, they're completely different. It's like comparing oranges and apples. Yes, both of them are round, but they are completely different. That doesn't mean just because they're round, they're exactly the same. So he started this myth, and it got a lot of circulation on social media, and they're saying, oh, don't take the COVID-19 vaccine, it's gonna make you infertile, which is not true. They did a study on women who received the Pfizer vaccine. They tested on 23 women who they tested on 24 women who took the Pfizer vaccine. 23 of them got pregnant, and there's one woman who did not get pregnant. And even that woman who did not get pregnant, she took a placebo. A placebo is a sugar pill or a water vaccine that doesn't have the actual vaccine. So vaccinations in general, or even the COVID-19 vaccinations, they don't affect your fertility, whether in guys or girls. It does not affect them. And not only that, they did a study on over 35,000 pregnant women who are thinking of getting pregnant, who are pregnant or are breastfeeding, and they received both. Like we said, as for now, the only two safe and effective vaccines is the Moderna and the Pfizer, and they did not have any side effects from them, or it did not affect their babies. And the reason, like I said earlier, we're saying that pregnant women should be vaccinated is that the danger with the COVID-19 vaccine is that a woman can pass it on to the fetus, and when comes delivery time, the baby being born, they can be born with COVID-19, and not only that. So that's why we're saying it's important for them to be vaccinated. So what research have found is that if a woman gets vaccinated and starts making antibody, she can pass on these antibody to the fetus, and when comes birth time, the baby has some protection against COVID-19. And not only that, women who are breastfeeding, they can also pass on the antibodies through their breast milk to their babies. So it gives them extra protection. So that's why we're saying it's really important that pregnant women or women that are breastfeeding to get the COVID-19 vaccinations. Just one point to note about people who like to get pregnant. So as of now, the National Institute for Immunizations, the Canadian one, the NACI, recommends that if you're trying to get pregnant, to wait at least 28 days before you get after you get your vaccine. And the only reason they said that is that even though they say there's no evidence to that 28-day waiting period, but we just want to be extra cautious. And they even said, if you live in an environment with a high potential of COVID-19 spread, just take the vaccine and don't wait for the 28 days. Other organizations like the CDC, the American one, they say you don't have to wait the 28 days. I'm just saying that based on what they recommended. And like I said, all these recommendations, they said that there's no evidence of waiting 28 days that's going to affect your pregnancy, but they just want to be extra cautious. Okay, so quickly, I'm going to be talking about Christianity and vaccination. So there's anywhere. So I'm not a priest, I'm not a pope, I'm not a bishop to be talking about Christianity, but all I know is that the Bible is straightforward, and there's nothing in the Bible or Christianity that says that you should not be getting vaccinated. Even Pope Tawadros himself and the Holy Synod of Bishops, they got vaccinated. A lot of priests got vaccinated. And being as a Christian, being vaccinated, that doesn't mean that your faith is small, or you don't believe that God is going to heal you. That getting infected with COVID-19 is real. Something doesn't have to do with your faith. And we've seen examples with something like the Serbian Orthodox Pope Irinj or Irinage. He was a doubter about coronavirus, and he said, "Wait, open the churches. There's no such thing as coronavirus," and he died of coronavirus. And even the bishop who took after his seat, he also died of coronavirus. So the point I want to make is coronavirus is very real and exists. And all of you guys have seen how coronavirus affected our over the last year, our physical presence at the church, where we weren't allowed to attend masses or participate in regular activities, and simple things like greeting one another with a holy kiss, kissing a cross, kissing a relic, kissing a picture. The coronavirus has prevented all of that because of the serious consequences of catching the virus. So the more people get vaccinated, the more we can go back to our normal lives, and the more we can go back to our church and practicing our rights and our faith. And finally, the Bible is very clear about each one of us have a duty to help the others. So every time a person doesn't get the vaccine, he has the potential of passing on the virus to another person, and that other person could get infected and could die with it. So you're gonna live with the guilt the rest of your life. And we've heard a lot of stories that a lot of people who pass on to the virus to other people, and they die from it, and they're living with guilt for the rest of their life. And the commandments in Philippians are very clear, is that when we're talking about our relationship with others, have to be in the mindset the same as Christ. And so we have to love our neighbor as ourselves. And so when everyone gets vaccinated, we can reach herd immunity, and we can start protecting the vulnerable, because not everyone is going to be able to get the vaccine because of their medical conditions. So at least we have a role. The Bible commands us that to help those who are vulnerable, so that when we get vaccinated, we can reach herd immunity and prevent these people from dying. Finally, if you decide to get vaccinated here in Manitoba, you can go online and sign online. The website is open 24 hours. If you don't have access to an internet, you can call 1-844-MAN-VAC. The line is open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. You can go online, you choose the site, and it gives you a map. You can search what's the closest vaccination location. You go there, it tells you to print a consent form, fill it out. You can print it at home and bring it to your appointment, or there at the vaccine centers, they have these forms to fill out. And just a reminder is that for 12 to 15-year-olds, they need their parents' signature. The parents don't have to be physically there with the kids. They can go on their own, take the bus, but as long as they have the form that says that the parents signed. 16 and up, you don't need a parent's signature. You can sign for yourself. The two big sites here in Winnipeg is the RBC Convention Center and the Lila Convention and the Lila vaccination site. Me and Dr. Lydia Gende, we work at the RBC Convention Center. It's not busy as everyone thinks. The operation goes very smoothly, and that's all the comments that we hear from people, is that this is a well-oiled machine. We have more than 300 people working per shift, just in terms of the organization of the vaccination process. You show up there, fill out your form if you haven't already, get registered, you go to the vaccine line, you sit down for your vaccine, 15 minutes later, you're done. And it's a very simple process. And with that, I have finished my lectures, and we can open the lecture for questions. And here is my email if you guys want to email me. And Dr. Lydia Gindi also, she apologizes for not being able to attend today's lecture, but because she's working today at the RBC Center, so she asked me to give out her email if you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Habibi. God bless you for that. I know that this is not the nature of our meeting, but Mina and Lydia and myself felt extremely empowered to actually, not just empowered, but even obliged to actually raise that awareness. And it was Mina who approached me and asked for that. And obviously feeling the responsibility, I definitely encouraged, and I want to thank him for preparing such a lovely talk. Obviously, as I said, we don't usually have a 1.5 hour lecture, solo lecture like that, but this is really important. Before we open the floor, Mina, if you can just stop sharing the screen so that we can have contribution from people. We have here today many people, but I want to also highlight that we have a couple of friends from Europe, Dr. Sohair and Irini. They are close friends to myself. I know that Irini will be starting a new role in AstraZeneca in Stockholm. So basically, I invited them to join, not to speak professionally about what's going on, but to see what we do in Canada here, and also have some insight and input, whether spiritual input or professional input. We are here just raising awareness. Thank you so much for joining, Dr. Sohair. You have
Thank
any
you so
comments?
much, Abuna. Yeah, thank you so much for the lecture. It's very, very interesting and very informative. I just wonder, why do you think there is so much skepticism and so much myth to these vaccines?
I think I'll let Mina answer that, but I will just add my 2 pennies. I think it's world views. Everybody has his own world view. People who are raised in a way that there is always a conspiracy, they will always find conspiracy even in themselves. But I will pass it to Mina. Mina, what do you think?
Oh, Abuna, just like you said, with the increase of technology that's increasing every day, and like I showed in the slide earlier, a lot of people they don't want to go the extra step of finding out what's real and what's not real, and so they got used to the idea if something is being shared, something looks professional. When I say looks professional, like has a website, but they don't look into the website, they think that it's true. And so even when we go on Google and we search for something, how many of actually check the source or the reference of the material mentioned? We just go by what's written, and the fastest way we look at is Wikipedia. And as we all know that in Wikipedia, anyone could edit or write anything that they want.
Yeah.
So that's the big problem, is that people think if it looks like it's the information looks professional, that that it should be trusted, and that's why we have to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, كمان يعني sometimes people, as the Bible said in when St. Paul was attacked by the people, that people were shouting for 2 hours continuously, and the majority of them didn't know what they are shouting about. So sometimes people just repeat what people say and feel that it is legitimate. Nowadays, all of you who do like either graduate study or undergraduate even, your paper must have peer-reviewed resources, not just anything. And that's a responsibility. I like one point you actually highlighted a lot, Mina, which is our responsibility as Christian. It is ethically important to know that thou shalt do no harm. So you have a responsibility for yourself and for the community you live in. Doing harm by not taking the vaccine is very unethical. Right. دكتور علاء اتفضلي يا دكتورة.
I'm just thinking about the swine flu and the vaccines that got developed very fast, and then we got some cases of narcolepsy afterwards.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the cause. I don't know why, and we noticed the same in Europe as well, among foreigners, among people from Egyptian background and other Arabic background, and the government is trying to reach them as well to convince them to take the vaccines. It's the same problem we are facing in Europe.
It's a mindset and it's a worldview, and it is because sometimes people could even go to the other extreme and just say this is the Antichrist. This is the beginning of the Antichrist preparation. At this point, we are, as Christian, we are led by the Holy Spirit, who lead the church through the Holy Synod, the Pope and the bishops. And I think if we are not faithful, God is faithful. So when the church tells us that this is not wrong, we have to do it.
Yes.
Hi. Irini, would you like to add something?
Hello, Abuna.
Hi, Habibi. Happy to see you.
Happy to see you too. It's been a while. I hope that I'm well heard because I'm using.
Yes.
Okay, good. Actually, I think that most of the things were covered by this lecture. It was very informative. Thank you, and very well prepared. I could tell. I think the only thing that I was thinking about was just that one of the fears that a lot of people have is usually the fear of thrombosis and also the fear of thrombocytopenia, because both risks are, well, you can get either depending on the situation or your own health. But it's always important to remember, like, how do you say that? That it's more about how you are, like how your health is, That's more important than following numbers, because these numbers, when you hear that, oh, well, if you're going to take this vaccine, then the risk is higher that you're going to get a thrombosis. Well, if you're overall healthy, then the risk of getting a thrombosis, as Mina was mentioning, thank you so much, is quite small still. So it's always this part that that people tend to forget. But what I keep wondering is why it always seems like these numbers always get so highlighted, and so they get bigger. Like whenever you converse with anyone, you feel like the numbers just keep on growing, as if suddenly you went from 0.00, what was it, 0.005% to almost 10% risk, and you're wanting to answer like, no, please, let's just take it easy and just think about, okay, if you're overall healthy, then there is no issue for you to even think about this. But what I'm wondering is a bit also, why is it so hard, especially in the Middle Eastern culture for some reason? Because I kind of feel whenever I meet anyone within the church community or the relatives, I tend to find the same mentality of, well, we do believe in God and we do believe that he will save us. But in the end, when it comes to, well, we have this vaccine and it's good for everyone to take it, then it somehow becomes, well, we rather put our faith in God and hope that he will have us safe.
Absolutely, Habibi. I think you made a very interesting two major points. Number one is going back again to the reality of numbers, not just the phone tag game or the phone game where people talk. One will talk in somebody's ear and the person will talk in front of him and in front of him. By the time it reaches the end of the line, if we have 10 people, the information gets really, really twisted, and the 0.5% becomes 25% at the end. So going back, as Mina said, to the credible resources is so important. But the other thing is, can vaccination collide or conflict with our faith and belief in God? You know what? If vaccination conflicts with our faith in God, every other medication will do the same. Those who have cancer should not take cancer medication, for example, or treatment. Those who break their legs should actually use cast, because God must be taken as a whole, not just pick and choose. So basically, there is very important idea here is that believing in God doesn't conflict at all with doing our due diligence. Our due diligence require us to take care of our health, go to the doctor, show ourselves to whoever diagnoses us. We take the medication from the doctor, and we pray about it, we pray for it, we ask God to bless it, and we take the medication after. So it's a mutual thing. And having said that, I will pass it back to Dr. Ala. Maybe Dr. Ala is our gynecologist. He actually can talk to us a lot about how a wonderful woman carrying a baby still needs to go to the doctor for follow-up, so that she can make sure that her responsibility to herself and to her baby doesn't conflict with her belief in God or faith in God. Tfadali, doctor. Or he can comment the way he likes. I'm just trying to facilitate. Tfadali.
Thank you, Abuna. Mina, it's one more reason for me to really like you so much. This is beautiful. I actually had 12 questions for Mina, and at the end of the presentation, they are down to only 2. So he got most of it. So number one, I want to thank Mina for clarifying that there is no evidence that vaccination will negatively affect your fertility, because this is something that we are asked about all the time from parents and from newlywed couple. Oh, if I take the vaccine, I will not be able to have babies. And for the guys, they are so worried about their sperm counts, but there are no data to suggest that close or far. So thanks for doing that. When it came to pregnancy, there is one minor thing I need to add, Mina, is that if you get COVID infection with symptoms, because most women that we know about in pregnancy, we know that they are COVID positive because we swab them when they come to the hospital. But if you come with symptoms, you have 11 times more chance of needing to be on life support. And this is a massive, serious implication on pregnant women. All of a sudden, with the pregnancy limiting the size of the lung, if the virus captures the lung and make it like wood, no matter how much oxygen you give them, it's not going in. You ventilate them, it's not going in. You put them on ECMO, and you know, once you put people on ECMO, you start to talk to their family about, is she going to make it or not? And we have many that we never expected that we'll see. But this is what's happening. I'll go back to Abuna, and I beg Abuna to clarify this, because at the beginning of this, they were saying that this is the 666 mark. You'll have a mark from the devil or from the beast, and if you don't have this mark, you can't buy, you can't sell, you can't do anything. Now we have the vaccine, and in an effort to protect the society or whatever is happening, we're starting to say, if you have not had the vaccine, you can't go to games, you might not be able to take an aeroplane, you might. This is resonating very, very, very badly with the anti-vaccine people, saying, hey, didn't we tell you in Revelation it was this? And they hold on to this, Abuna, as if now they have the core of their faith being verified. كأن دي يعني أثبتوا من شفتوا من كلكم وحشين. فأنا دي هطلب من أبونا clarify at the end. Mina, thank you for saying that the vaccine doesn't have microchips, because definitely people who like to research, they'll find that the next war will be microchip war, where you inhale things that will make you work on your genetics. But we are not there. We are not there at all. And I did my own hard work before I got my own mRNA vaccine, and the microchip theory is not validated. The smallest microchip available today that you can inject into somebody, you need a needle that is 12 gauge, which is quite big, fat one. It looks like as thick or thicker than the inside of my pen. So I'm going to leave the floor back to Abuna for the revelation, and I want Abuna to teach us how should we treat other members of society who are honestly in belief that the vaccine is bad for them. So they have done their own due diligence, they have done their own reading, and they still cannot trust what we are saying for lack of trust of pharmaceutical companies and of governments. Now we have this group that are honest, respectful people that are refusing to take the vaccine because that's what they believe. How can we treat them with respect and kindness? And how do you avoid splitting the society and being one against each other? So the two questions for Abuna. Revelation, does it have any application on the vaccine? The second one, how do you want to teach us to treat people who cannot make their brain accept the vaccine? Thank you, Abu.
Okay, thank you so much for your clarification and your comment, Doctor. I know that the lecture is already long, but I'll take 2 minutes to respond to your question quickly, but we'll definitely have another talk about that. Why people link the vaccine to the Antichrist and the 666? Usually, when we see something, as you said, that resonates with something in the Bible, right away it flags immediately in our brain an alert. The Bible in Revelation 13 talks about calculating the name of the Antichrist and so forth, and it used the number 666. In the lecture that Mina actually highlighted by Bill Gates in 2014, I believe, Bill Gates entered a TED Talk with a big box or container telling people that a pandemic will come. And I watched that lecture by myself. It's available in TED Talk. He talks about the pandemic and so forth. And then he was talking about how the health system will not sustain the impact. And then he mentioned that his nonprofit organization is working on finding something that can make sure a person maintain his health and blah, 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 where the vaccine is designed in a way that monitor the body and all of this. The patent of that vaccine that Bill Gates was talking about has a number, like any patent, and the number has the date and 060606. So people started to link between the two, and obviously whether they are linked or not doesn't seem to be the case today, because what's happening today is a little bit different. What I want to say is we need to understand that pandemic is a pandemic. Virus is a virus. There is reality in both. The vaccine, when the vaccine is designed or implemented or produced, many people looked at that, and including scientists and people from Christian background. Our church, Coptic Church, had actually hosted a lecture in the US to speak about that, to clarify the doubts. So what I want to say is, it sounds a little bit similar to what Revelation is describing as far as buying or selling, but there are many differences here. Number one, the mark of the beast will be in people's right hand and on people's head. If I want to take things literally, I need to consider that as well. Number two, that mark of the beast will be promoted by the Antichrist himself. And the Antichrist has not been yet manifested. So number three, people will be actually tortured for their faith. So the Antichrist will ask people not to worship God. Today, you are taking the vaccine in order for you to come back to the church. And that's completely the opposite. So there is misunderstanding. And what I don't like is when some churches leaders start to speak to their congregation, convincing them that this is the Antichrist, blah, 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 blah. Because a big thing like that doesn't come from a small thing like myself. It comes from the Holy Synod, the Pope. If our Pope and our bishops, more than 120 of them, they gather together, they pray together. And today, when we celebrate the descent of the Holy Spirit on the apostles, we understand also that the church is governed by the Holy Spirit through the church's leaders. And they tell us this is not the Antichrist. I think it will be very indication of pride for an individual to come out, even if he's a priest, and say, this is the Antichrist, because God doesn't play tricks. When the Antichrist comes, it will be so clear that this is the Antichrist. So that's my answer in very short. The other point, how to deal with our fellow wonderful, amazing people. You know what? As usual, we deal with respect and try to see what is really going on. What is the barrier? Why people aren't buying that vaccine thing? Nobody forces anybody to take a vaccine, but maybe highlighting the importance and maybe clarifying the dangers would be the least we do. Today's lecture and yesterday's lecture has that objective, is to raise the awareness. And obviously, people will like it and people will hate it. People will praise it and people will condemn it. Anyway, we do what we feel is right, and whether people like it or not, at the same time, it's our obligation to do that. Sharif, if I answered you or I walked all over the place, but that's...
You answered me very clearly, and I was really hoping to see Abuna, which is our authority. Abuna, priests are priests, and at the time of fear, we come back to our fathers, and you are in a position of trust. So when we are afraid, we don't recalculate things, we take your word and fly with that. Then we think about it later. So I'm grateful that Abuna is clarifying that the church has a position saying that this is not what's in Revelation. Guys, do not have this barrier between you and the vaccine. Yeah. Mina, thank you again. And there is non-intended consequences for COVID on the health of people that cannot have their surgeries, people that their cancer became very advanced because we couldn't take them in, for mental health issues. So let's work together and let's continue respecting others who do not believe in what we believe.
Absolutely. Type any other comment? Peter, do you have something to say? I know نحن يعني we stretch it شوية, but please, if you have something to say.
No, so أنا ما عنديش حاجة أقولها. Thank you very much for the talk and thank you everybody.
طيب, NG, do you have something to say? أو مينا ميخائيل؟
سلام يا أبونا، سلام يا مينا، ميرسي خالص. يا ريت لو السلايدز بس يعني يبقى ليها اكسس عشان كل الأسئلة دي بنتسألها يعني واحنا بندي. I have بس 2 comments يعني. أنا أخدت الدوز الأولى وبعد كده يعني مش شايفة أي transparency في البلد هنا، مش عارفة في إيه يعني، كل يوم بكلام مختلف. احنا عشان بندي فكل يوم بيجي لنا تغيير في يعني في الاستورج، في الاكسبايري، في اللي خد الدوز الاولى ياخد ايه الدوز الثانيه. يعني مش عارفه ليه كده، يعني انا مش شايفه اي بلد بتعمل اللي احنا بنعمله ده بصراحه. يعني الاول كان فايزر لا ده ليه سبيشال ستورج في ماينس مش عارفه 40 ولا كام. دلوقتي بقينا عادي بنجيبه في الصيدليه في الفريج العاديه جدا في الصيدليه. قالوا لنا الاول 5 days بس في الفريج دي، بعد يوم بالظبط بقوا 30 days، بعد يوم بالظبط موديرنا كان الستورج only 6 hours بقى 24 hours. يعني مش عارفه امتى الدراسات دي كلها بتحصل يعني في يوم وليله. فحاسه ان ما بقاش في ترانسبيرنسي. الناس بتجيلي تقول لي هو انتوا مش قلتوا اللي خد استرازينيكا فيرست دوز ما ياخدش غيرها؟ والناس تانية تيجي تقول لي يعني هو في ايه، هو كل يوم بكلمة. في بوشينج غريب، انت مش هتسافر، انت مش هتتحرك، انت مش هتعرف تحضر جيمز، مش هتعرف تحضر اي سينما اي ثياترز، في ناس مش هتعرف تروح السكولز لو ما خدتش الفاكسين. ليه في بوشينج؟ ليه الطريقة مرعبة كده يعني؟ انا كنت الاول مقتنعة بيه جدا، بعد كده ابتديت اللي هو ايه ده في ايه يعني، هو مش بالعافية.
تمام.
ممكن اجاوب بسرعه
انا هخليك تجاوب يا حبيبي.
على حكايه ليه كل يوم في نيو انفورميشن بتظهر. زي ما احنا عارفين ان دي حاجه جديده، this is something new، وكل يوم الريسيرش في حاجات جديده بتظهر. يعني دي مش حاجه قديمه، احنا اوريدي عندنا lots of research، فاحنا عارفين what happens from A to Z. so كل يوم بيظهر new research، والريسيرش بتغير حسب الريكومنديشن. عشان كده مثلا زي الستورج، هم المين كونسيرن قال لك مش هيبقى ستيبل، وبعد كده عملوا مور ريسيرش ولقوا لا ان الفاكسين يبقى ممكن ستيبل في temperatures او اقل من كده like at 2 to 8 degrees. على حكايه ال changing of the recommendations، دلوقتي احنا اي with any vaccine لازم the 2 things to look at is benefit versus harm. So what is the benefit of mixing the vaccine compared when we are in high risk province of with the number of cases compared the benefit of waiting for the second dose from the actual to be the same, right? So right now we have a shortage of Pfizer. We stopped bringing in more AstraZeneca doses. So should we wait until to get the second dose and everyone gets vaccinated with the exact same dose and 21 days or 8 days? Well, the risk is if we wait this long, more people will get the virus and more people can die from it. So we always look at the risk versus benefits. And that's why the guidelines change every day or every week, because we're assessing, the more research becomes available, the more we're trying to make the best of the situation. And I know because this is something new and a lot of people get frustrated, but it's our responsibility as healthcare workers, whether you work in a pharmacy or a hospital or anywhere else, that we try to clarify things to the people, for the general audience, and make sure that we're working in the best interest of them. حتى غير الفاكسين، يعني حتى لما حد يجي يقول لك عنده high blood pressure, and you always work in the best interest of him to make sure that he's getting the right medication, you're following up with him. الحاجات دي كلها. Every year there's a new medication and new guidelines. You always try to do what's best for the patient. عشان كده هم, with all the new information that's coming out from all around the world, that's the thing, that because it's a pandemic, we're getting information from all over the world. It's not just a problem with Canada. So all new so the information changes all the time. So I know it's causing problems with people's trust, but we're doing what's
بالظبط. هي بقت مشكلة trust دلوقتي. يعني في ناس بتيجي تقول لنا we have to trust them، يعني مش احنا we trust them مثلا، لا we have to، ما قدامناش حاجة تاني. واللي بيجي يقول لي انا شغلي كله سفر، فهم مسكوني، يعني اللي هو زي من ايدي اللي بتوجعني. حاجات كده. يعني في ديبيتس كتير قوي، وفي يعني في الكوميونتي بقى. انا مش بتكلم في حاجه ساينتفكلي او بتاع، انا بتكلم من واقع الناس واراء الناس كلها حواليا. برضو اما بتيجي في حاجه جديده اسمها enhanced consent form، ده للناس اللي اوتو اميونز او pregnant او breast feeding او يعني عندها اي مشاكل. الأسئلة كلها 14 سؤال بيصبوا إن إحنا we don't have evidence، وإن أنتي هتمضي دلوقتي إن إحنا ما نعرفش هيعمل فيكي إيه. طيب يبقى خلاص ما نعرفش، يبقى ما نعرفش، لكن مش نقعد نقول إن هو لا ما بيأثرش على البريجننت، ما بيأثرش على البريست فيدينج، ما بيأثر، لا ما نعرفش. أنا that's what I'm following في الفاكسين دلوقتي، إن أنا I don't know. just sign this عشان أنا أحمي نفسي وإنتي كمان ما نعرفش، no one knows يعني. فخلاص يعني مش قصدي ما فيش حد يبوش حد، وكل واحد فعلا حر وكل واحد بيقرأ، أو بس لما بنيجي عند إن في information أكيدة، لا ما حدش عنده information أكيدة.
كلامك صح يا بنتي, you are absolutely right. بس احنا let's remember also that we are dealing with something, as Mina said, new, something dynamic. يعني مثلا ال variants ديت, they are new every day, something new. Usually people start by let us be safe than sorry until more research is done, and then they clarify more and more what is the new finding. I want to just say that what you see is a lack of transparency. I see it personally as transparency, because lack of transparency is if they say something at the beginning and never a change even after new finding. What's happening today, or what I see, is everything comes to the surface, they actually announce it. Even the number of infectious, number of cases, death, even sometimes mistake in announcement. So what I see here is more transparent than lack of transparency. But طبعا it's totally different like what I see from what you see, because honestly speaking, everybody sees from his own point of view. فأنا طبعا I am not involved.
هو الترانسبيرنسي دي عملت تخبط يا بني.
أيوة طبعا.
كل يوم نيوز جديدة.
ما هي دي transparency بقى. Every day something new. transparency. بس هو ده يعني, ما هي عارفة if they say مثلا let's keep Pfizer in that storage of -40 as they said at the beginning مثلا يعني, and they realize that was a big margin. No, it can be stored in -10 مثلا يعني, or even room temperature. The cost of the virus to be stored in -40 is way higher than handling it in the room temperature. I'm just speaking of cost-benefit analysis. So in that case, new finding will help. بس طبعا your point is so valid إنه في confusion كتير because it's something new.
ممكن أقول حاجة يا أستاذ؟
اتفضلي يا دكتور.
أنا عارفة دكتور علاء رفع إيده برضه، بس أنا عايزة أقول حاجة. إحنا الجنريشن بتاعتنا والجنريشن اللي موجودة حاليا دي ما عاشتش أي بانديميك.
أيوة.
فإحنا ما نقدرش نتكلم هل الانفورميشن دي false or not or changing or not. لأن في at least 100 years ago since the last pandemic. فإحنا إحنا بالعكس إحنا المفروض نكون thankful إن في more information all the time. الحاجة الثانية ودي اللي قالها مينا إنه لازم all the time go back to the trusted resources. وأنا انبسطت جدا لأن هو أكد على النقطة دي في أكثر من حتة، لأنه دي أهم حاجة بالنسبة لنا بدل ما ننشر أي معلومات من غير ما نرجع لها يعني.
Absolutely. يعني احنا we live in an experiment مع البانديميك دي لأن حاجة جديدة. طيب thank you. أيوة علاء اتفضل يا حبيبي.
أنا بس عايز أقول لإنجي إحنا we had great difficulty in the beginning لما كنا مش عارفين إيه الإمباكت بتاع الفاكسين وكنا بنقول risk and benefit ومفيش data suggest a harm. بعد لما آلاف وآلاف وآلاف من الأمهات ولدوا من أطفال والحمل يكمل ويتبعوا لحد دلوقتي إحنا مش شايفين أي significant negative impact على البريجنسي على البيبيز أو على الأم. وفي نفس الوقت the more we go through the information, the more we know how vulnerable are pregnant women to deterioration when they get pregnant, when they catch the COVID virus. We had moms who came out from the ICU with dead babies inside them because of the virus. We had moms who aborted because of the fever or the virus. We had families that did not have their mom going back home. And the only variable was that she was pregnant when she had the COVID. So you are in a far better spot today, Angie, to tell your patients, to the best of our knowledge today, the data is suggesting, the data is clarifying that up till now we don't have negative impact. Are we going to see something in 25 years? God only knows, but that applies to every sandwich you eat. Every new product that you deal with may have an impact on us 25 years down the line. So we are in a far better spot today talking to pregnant women about the vaccine than what we were a few months ago. That's all.
Yeah, the last comment I have to say it here. Somebody sent it through Facebook, and he is from Netherlands. بيقول, dear Father, bless me. Why is the church promoting a vaccine? Is it the duty of the church to promote things? Does the church also, for example, promote Coca-Cola? Actually, we are not promoting anything. We are raising the awareness in our congregation because of the confusion and because of what's going on, because people link that to Antichrist and to things and so forth. Obviously, if people drink Coca-Cola or the lack of thereof, it wouldn't affect their church's attendance or health or even life and death. So I don't promote anything, neither Coca-Cola nor vaccine. But we are raising the awareness because of the severity of the situation, because we want people to know that this is really serious and there are many myths around, as Mina said, that need to be clarified. Mina Habibi, last comment if you want to say something.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if he attended the lecture from the beginning or not, but in the beginning I said that I'm not being paid by any associations or drug companies or anything like that. I'm not promoting anything. We're just making sure that we're delivering correct information, and it's up to you to make the decision of being vaccinated or not. And we're saying that all the research that we have right now is saying that vaccines save life, and worldwide there's more than 1.5 billion people who got their vaccines, and they're in a way better position than people compared who got the actual virus. So we're saying that it's good for you to protect yourself, protect the others around you. If you don't want to take it, that's fine, but we're asking you that you please make sure that you're getting your information from credible resources.
Absolutely, Habib. With that being said, I want to thank all of you for attending with us. And before I let you go, God willing, next week we have Abuna Antonius from Alexandria will be talking to us as family as the icon of the church. Al-Usra Aykunat al-Kanisa. It's a lovely talk. After that, we'll have our premarital meeting. We'll announce the topic later. In July, either 4th or 12th, we have Mr. Asam Yunan will be talking to us about the life of the apostles. A very interesting talk for the graduate to learn from the apostles. And on the July 18th, we have Abuna Mina Zaki from Alexandria will be talking to us about an amazing talk. Abuna Mina wrote so many books. I know him in person. He is such a lovely priest. All of that will be announced later and invitation will be sent. But طبعا I would like to thank Mina and thank all of you who attended with us. And I want to thank everybody who followed, whether on Facebook or on YouTube. Let us pray together in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. O Lord Christ, as you sent your Holy Spirit upon the disciples in the form of thunder and fire to cleanse, O Lord, and to empower, we ask you today to make the Holy Spirit revive our life through the fiery action, and through the thunder action, so that any unuseful information can be cleansed. Anything can be destroyed if it is not pleasing to your goodness. We don't know what is right and what is wrong. We do our due diligence, but we put our thoughts between your hand, O Lord, and we ask you to filter our thoughts and our ideas to shape our world views in the way that you wanted us to behave. Many things around us, O Lord, can be confusing, especially nowadays. So we ask you to make use of this information and baptize the information so that people can take whatever make their Christian life useful, healthy, and beneficial. Bless everybody who attended with us and make us all worthy to pray thankfully, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptations, deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, thine kingdom, power, glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you again. And we always like to be transparent. If you have any comment, even if it is a criticize, constructive feedback or non-constructive, send it to us. God bless you. Go in peace. The peace of the Lord be with you. ربنا معاكم. ألف سلام. سلام.